Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on in to the Drafted Up podcast. As always, you can follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at @draftedup_pod. We're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Search Drafted Up Podcast, rate, like, subscribe, review, all that good stuff. We always appreciate it. Today, we're doing our top 24 running backs for fantasy football. Last two episodes, we did our top 24 receivers. So if you want our receiver rankings, go check those on out over at the previously listed places, wherever you watch or listen. Reason we're doing top 24 and not like top 20 or top 25 is because, most league formats, you're running a 12-team league, so you're looking at your RB1s and your RB2s, or positional rankings 1 and 2. Reminder, these are based off PPR scoring, which is points per reception. That's the preferred scoring platform that Nick and I use. So there you got it. Nick, how you doing?
Pretty good. Can't complain. Wisdom teeth taken out. Got holes in my mouth. Eating's going rough, but fantasy football is keeping me going.
There we go.
So is that Giants Hard Knocks, baby. So good.
Yeah.
I love it.
We got college football 25 on the doorstep. It's
Indeed,
coming.
So I guess that I'll announce now that this will be my last podcast. I won't have time to record after this, so the game drops tomorrow, and you won't see me ever again. So
I will be recording.
Goodbye,
with
everybody.
An AI generated Nick.
I gotta take Colorado State to the top, baby.
Nick has pre-recorded all of his stuff for the next couple months, and I will just verbatim. I've listened to all of it, so I know what I need to say to make it all make sense.
You know when you have to chime in to add on to what I'm saying, so it might be a little rough to start, but we'll get through it.
In the video, you'll just see a cardboard cutout of Nick, and maybe I'll edit in a little mouth over him.
Yeah, there'll be like a really bad dubbed movie. My mouth back. Hello, how are you?
A nice little karate western type movie.
Hell yeah!
There. Today we are going to condense this into one episode. We did 2 for the receivers, but there's a lot of content we got because we're only like 50 days away from football, which is crazy. Like,
it's right around the corner, baby boy.
Football, and it goes so fast in the off season. You're just like, it's going to drag, but no, there's always something going on. So we're going to do our top 24 here, one episode. Next week, we'll be doing quarterbacks and tight ends together. And then we'll have our first mock draft.
Whoop, whoop. I'm excited.
After the mock draft, we'll move on to divisional previews. So we'll give our predictions for teams. We'll talk about players relevant to fantasy football for each team. So that's what you guys got to look forward to here.
Indeed. We might end up having to put out, 2 a week if we're doing division stuff. Is that how that's going to work?
Yeah, we'll probably move to 2 a week or 2 every other week, depending on the scheduling, but we're going to try to churn out the content here. So let's dive in. Our top 24.
Busy. Hell yeah.
But let's start with a guy, our running back 25. So I said we weren't going to do top 25, but here we are. We're going to talk about our running back 25 because it's kind of important that we talk about this guy. He's our just missed the cut. I had him in my top 24. He was my running back 24. He was your running back 26. And that's Josh Jacobs of the Green Bay Packers, formerly of the Las Vegas Raiders. Currently being drafted as the running back 10. Early 3rd round, late 2nd. And we have him just outside our top 24. Jacobs' new team, moving over from the Raiders to the Packers. Last season, he finished as the RB28. Missed camp, came in out of shape, really struggled last year. So I know Jacobs is a hit or miss guy. Like, some people are in on him, and we're clearly out, both of us. So this is going to be sort of a one-sided conversation, but what's the mindset here on Josh Jacobs?
I was really, when I was doing the stats and stuff, and I kept putting guys in, I'm like, okay, where's Josh Jacobs going to fall? And I'm at 15. I'm like, okay, he's probably going to fall around here. And I get to 20, and I'm like, okay. 25, I'm like, where the fuck is Josh Jacobs? And he's like, he landed at 26. And I've been down on Josh Jacobs. I've been out on him all his ADP. I don't want him. He's going 2nd, 3rd. That's not for me. He's going to go in as an RB1. Green Bay runs a lot of 2-back systems. They drafted Marshawn Lloyd very early, day 2 pick. He's got a great skill set. He's a really big boom kind of guy. He's going to complement Josh Jacobs a lot. And I think that they're going to split time. So I'm looking at Jacobs as a guy like Tony Pollard, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, guys that are splitting times with other backs that are going to get other time. So it makes sense that he fell in between with those guys, like Tyjae Spears in my eyes. And I see him as a back that's going to be carrying a good amount of workloads. I have him almost at 1,000 yards, but not quite. But I really think Marshawn Lloyd's going to be a good late round kind of guy that you can snag, and he's going to get a lot of time on the field.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be looking at Josh Jacobs as a guy who's getting 340 carries like he got in 2022 or 273 carries that he got in 2020. Like, I think we're looking at the middle 200 range, which is a lot for a Green Bay starting back. Like, I don't even know if Aaron Jones regularly broke 200 carries there. I have him currently at 222 carries, but I do think Josh Jacobs' main fantasy value was the fact that he was such a bell cow back. Like Zamir White, Amir Abdullah, none of the running backs who were backing him up were ever on the field when Josh Jacobs was healthy.
Yeah.
So in Green Bay, Matt LaFleur, no running back has ever saw 60% of the snaps in Green Bay.
He loves two-back systems. He loves keeping them fresh.
So I don't think that necessarily changes. Maybe Josh Jacobs does slightly break 60, but like I do think Marshawn Lloyd is going to be heavily involved. I don't think A.J. Dillon's going to be a factor. I don't even know if A.J. Dillon's going to make this team.
There's a chance he doesn't for sure. They hate him. They've come out and said that like Marshawn Lloyd has skill sets that other backs on the team doesn't have. Like they straight up said, A.J. Dillon's slow. He's fat. He's thick-thighed. He doesn't know what he's doing with a ball in his hands. Green Bay hates that guy. I'm legitimately surprised he's still on the team.
He's in the best shape of his life, though.
Yeah, so is Leonard Fournette.
So is everybody in the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not on an NFL team, you're in the best shape of your life.
Yeah, but so like I just worried about volume with Josh Jacobs, and like last year he looked bad. So like I don't know if like that's just
so bad last year, dude.
Coming in late to camp and just being unprepared. Or if that's just how we're going to see Josh Jacobs trending. Because, like, he's got a lot of carries in 5 years.
A ton. He's got a ton of workload, dude.
He's got 1,300 carries in the last 5 years since he's been in the league. So, like, I'm worried about the previous workload. I'm worried about the split back system that Green Bay likes to run. Mm-hmm. But, hey, the last time everybody was out on Josh Jacobs, he ended up leading the league in rushing. So,
yeah, exactly.
But, I mean, it doesn't seem like the consensus is out on him. It just seems we're out on him because right now his ADP is running back 10. So people are in on Josh Jacobs. We're not. So we'll see where Josh Jacobs lands. He's one of the scariest names to like. I never end up targeting him.
No, like, I try not to take him. But the year he led the league in the rushing yards, he averaged almost 5 yards a carry, which he only has done his rookie year and that year. And other than that, he sits around 4. Last year, he was at 3.4. That's like Trent Richardson numbers. That's bad. Yeah. That's like not good at all. 3.4 is not what you want. It's in the bottom half of like where you guys are. He might have been last on starters. Like I heard he was like bottom tier in yards per average in starters last year. He's just a guy I'm not willing to like grab because you got like guys like ETN around him, Nico Collins, who's a receiver, Rashad White, who's going after him, Pacheco, like all of these guys I would take over Josh Jacobs for sure.
Yeah. The main issue for Josh Jacobs is ADP. I don't like him as RB10. Yeah. Like if he was going in the mid round, like the 4th or 5th, I'll start looking his way. But late second, early third, I like the other guys I can get.
I agree. If he was going around guys like Joe Mixon, Kamara, Montgomery, guys like that, where you can see past where he's going to score more than them, I would take that. But I don't see how he's going to score more than Rashad White or Pacheco. They're getting the workload there. Those guys are going to be the bell backs, where Josh Jacobs, I don't think he's going to be.
Yeah. So here we go. Top 24. So I know in our receivers episode, we talked about that Nick and I had the same 30 guys ranked as our top 30 receivers, which is a crazy thing to do. Mm-hmm. A little bit more spread with the running back. Nick only had one guy from his top 24 not make it into our consensus, and that was Aaron Jones of the Minnesota Vikings, who he is at 22. I had him at 32. I think there's going to be more of a split than most people think. I think that's what it comes down to between our rankings. Mm-hmm. And then I had two guys outside in my top 24 that didn't make the cut, and that was Josh Jacobs, who was my RB24, and Tyjae Spears, who was my RB23. Nick has Spears at 33, Jacobs at 36 or 26. Mm-hmm. So Spears, I'm sure it comes down to you see Tony Pollard having more work than I do, and
I mean I have Tony Pollard outside of my 24 too. I have him at 27.
Yeah.
So it's
Tony Pollard is the first guy on our list.
He is, but yeah. So we'll go right into Tony Pollard. I have both of them outside of my RB2s. I have Pollard at 27, Spears at 33. So they're very close. I just think that they're going to eat each other alive. It's kind of like when you have like two guys on the same team competing for all-star votes and they kind of just cancel themselves out in baseball.
Mhm.
And now I don't know who's going to get the work because they love Tajay Spears and they brought in Tony Pollard. So it's like a whole coaching staff didn't bring in Tajay Spears, isn't there anymore, but they still love him. They've talked high about him, and they're almost very similar. They're both smaller backs who are going to get a lot of workload with the ball. And
yeah, it's not like an
plays
AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones situation where each back has a clear role. There's different backs, but Brian Callahan offenses have produced fantasy relevant backs. Look at Joe Mixon. He's the most boring running back in football, but he's been a top 10 fantasy guy the last 4 years.
Yes, sir.
So there is value if you get on the one side. I think Tennessee's offense is going to be a little bit better than people think they're going to be, and I think that's mostly because the defense is going to be terrible and they're going to be losing a lot. So I think they're going to be passing a lot. So I think you're going to see a lot of catches and targets to each of these guys, and that's why I think they're going to be relevant. Like I think they're going to be more fantasy relevant than like DeAndre Hopkins in that offense.
See, I'm higher on Ridley and Hopkins than I am Pollard and Tajay Spears. There's something about DeAndre Hopkins that I'll never let go. I love that guy.
Yeah.
I'm a ride or die with Hopkins through and through, baby.
Tony Pollard, formerly of the Dallas Cowboys, now with Tennessee, as mentioned. You have him as your running back 27. I had him at 22. Last season, Tony Pollard, disappointing year. A lot of people not happy with him. I had Tony Pollard, and he was drafted first, second round. He finished as the RB 14, 13.1 points per game. He got healthy towards the end of the year. He looked better. It was just a lack of touchdowns. 252 carries, 1,005 yards, 6 touchdowns, 55 receptions on 67 targets, 311 yards. He's currently being drafted as the RB24, so we're on par with his current draft stock at a late 7th round pick. I'm all in to throw that dart throw on Tony Pollard. I still like him. I'm not letting what he did to me last year, drafting him in the top 10 as a running back, RB, I drafted him in the 2nd round. But I think you're getting him at almost his floor in the 7th round.
At this point, yeah. But see, last year people look at it as a disappointment only based off ADP. So it could fall into the Josh Jacobs thing that we were just talking about, is that you're taking this guy at his ceiling, but now this year you're taking Tony Pollard at his floor. So I do like Tony Pollard a little bit, but I think him and Spears are going to eat a lot of work from each other. So I really didn't know which one to give it to. So I have them very, very close. But yeah, Tony Pollard as ADP, you got to take him. The last 2 years, he's been a top 15 back. So we'll see how it works. I think he's going to do better in Tennessee with a back behind him. I don't think, because his main year in Dallas, he had Zeke and he had a lot of help, where then they tried to do it with just him and it almost failed, but it didn't. He just didn't look as good. Where now him and Spears will be able to split the carries, keep them both fresh.
Yeah, Pollard's been better as a complimentary or slightly handling more workload, but he's never been like his one season as the guys looked at as a disappointment, but numbers weren't terrible. I think it does look better. I think he's going in healthy this year. So I think Tony Pollard is a great value in the 7th round. I'm in on him. I have him a little bit higher than his ADP. Next up is a guy who we both have higher than his ADP. He's currently going in the early 9th round as running back 32, and that is Jaylen Warren of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last season, Warren finished as the RB22, 11.6, 11.6 points per game. In 17 games, he had 149 carries for 784 yards, 4 touchdowns, 61 receptions on 74 targets for 370 yards, no touchdowns. So you got a PPR guy here. And this is where the format really benefits. Like if you're running a PPR league, Jaylen Warren gets a little boost because he's going to catch a lot of passes in Pittsburgh because he's the pass catching guy, because Najee, that's really not his style. So I think that's where we have him ranked higher, is based off the workload we see from a receiving standpoint.
100%. Because I don't know where I have him stat.
You have him 21, and I have him at 26.
Like I only have him at 721 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, but I have him at 58 catches. And I've been preaching Najee all offseason. I'm very high on Najee. So when it turned out that I had Jaylen Warren over Najee, I'm like, what the fuck? How did this happen? And it's the PPR system. And I get it. It is what it is. I love both of them. I'm able to get Jaylen Warren after I can get Najee. I'm not going to draft both, but I do try to walk out with one of the Pittsburgh running backs in every single mock I do. I love the new coaching system they have there at the quarterbacks that they brought in. They're going to be running a lot of 2-back systems, and both guys I think are going to be very, fantasy relevant, and that kills me because Najee's Najee, and he could be bad. He can really, but I think he's gonna have a good year. I'm actually in on Najee, which is crazy.
I think you're essentially drafting both of them at their floor.
I agree.
Like, I think both of them are going to beat their ADP. I don't have Najee's ADP in front of me because he didn't make our list. Like, Jalen Warren is going 32, early ninth. Najee's going a little before him. I think Najee's going, like, right outside the top 24 in, like, the 7th, like, right around where Tony Pollard's going. So, I think you're getting good value either that, like, Jalen Warren is going to bring you heavy PPR stuff. I had him at 51 catches and 750 rushing yards. Like, he's not going to get a lot of touchdowns, so a lot of his workload's going to be coming from dump offs and just the work he does get in the run. And Arthur Smith loves running the ball, so he's going to be involved in this offense. It's just going to be a matter of, is this offense going to be good or not? And the questions with Najee and Jalen Warren you're going to have also with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears are these guys going to eat into each other's workload where they end up both being irrelevant in fantasy and then just being, like, at best flex guys?
Yeah, I agree that the pathway to them being the number one guy isn't really there because of the guys behind them. So you have to look at the guys behind them, and they're taking work from each other. But Najee's ADP is 7.08, which is the back end of the 7th, and then Jalen Warren's is 9.4. So it's the beginning of the 9.4. So it's the beginning of the 9th. So you're almost getting 2 rounds after you're getting Najee, and I have him with more points. So
yep, me too. Next up. This guy is a bell cow guy. That's James Conner from the Arizona Cardinals. I have him as RB21. You have him as RB24 last season. Conner finished as running back 18, averaging 15.5 points per game. In 13 games, he had 208 carries, 1,040 yards, 7 touchdowns, 27 receptions on 33 targets, 165 yards, and another 2 touchdowns. Currently being drafted in the early 6th round as RB19. So I'm actually surprised that we're both lower on James Conner than his ADP. Because I love James Conner.
As do I, but I love that guy that's sitting behind him on that depth chart just a little bit more.
This is the first year since James Conner's moved to Arizona where he has a back behind him who can affect his workload. Before, DeMarcado and Eno Benjamin, not guys that are going to affect James Conner's fantasy value, and James Conner will miss games. He has every season.
I'm gonna read off a list of numbers here, and it's 13, 13, 15, 13, 10, 13, and 14. None of those are 16 or 17. He's never completed the season. Trey Benson's going to start games. And if he performs the way Trey Benson can perform, he's not going to take the job, but he's going to take carries. And he's going to take more than anyone has ever taken from James Conner in Arizona. And I do really like James Conner when he's the bell cow only guy. So I kind of slid him down a little bit. I still have him where he usually kind of finishes around the 20s, 24 I have him. So I do like Trey Benson a lot, though.
Yeah. If Conner or when Conner misses games and Benson is effective, it could be a situation where Benson does start taking over more of the workload and we see James Conner more as the touchdown guy, which will be fantasy, but like if he's guaranteed that James Conner will be the goal line back regardless, because it comes down to who does the coach trust at the goal line? He's going to trust the veteran more than a rookie.
Yeah, definitely.
Like James Conner's been super valuable to this offense. I still think he's going to be the guy, but he will miss games, which will affect his, positioning finish wise, which is why I have him a little lower. I just don't see him holding up for 17 games, but he's going to have an effective season. He's going to be a very safe running back too. Like, he doesn't have the ceiling to be an RB1, but like I don't think his floor falls past RB2.
No, even with Benson behind him, he's not going to fall past an RB2. He's still going to finish in the top 24. So you just got to get him around that range, but just be prepared that he's going to miss games.
Early 6th round, if you're getting a guy who you can count on in your lineup getting 15 points per game, you love that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not a big proponent in handcuffing, but James Conner is the guy that you might want to try to grab his backup. There's not many guys that I will preach handcuffing backups, but James Conner, he's going to miss games, and Trey Benson's going pretty much the end of the draft. So just snag him, and it is what it is.
Next up, 21 on our list, new face, Cincinnati Bengals running back Zach Moss, formerly of the Indianapolis Colts. Last season, he finished as the RB31, 12.1 points per game. In 14 games, he had 183 carries for 794 yards, 5 touchdowns, 27 receptions on 37 targets, 192 yards, and another 2 touchdowns. currently going as the RB30 in the late 8th. I have him as RB25. You have him at 19.
Mhm.
We're both higher than consensus. I think 30 is a major discount for Zach Moss, who right now is projected to be the Bengals starting running back.
I don't like Chase Brown, and that's kind of the reason I have Zach Moss. Well, if you look at the guys that I have Zach Moss higher than, I like the people that they have, like Montgomery, I like Gibbs, Warren, I like Najee, Aaron Jones, I like Ty Chandler, Zamir White, I kind of risky on him. James Conner, Najee, all these guys have good backups, where Zach Moss, I don't like Chase. And you got to look at what Zach Moss was doing last year in Indy when Taylor wasn't doing stuff, and he was out there winning people single-handedly, winning guys games in fantasy football, dude. Like,
I got some numbers. 18 for 88 and a touchdown. 30 carries for 122 yards. 18 for 70. 23 for 165 and 2. And then I think Jonathan Taylor's back here because it's 7 for 21 and 1. 18 for 57. 11 for 66. And then nothing. And then 2 weeks later, 19 for 51.
He's more productive than Joe Mixon, and he's going into the Joe Mixon offense. Is he not just Joe Mixon? What am I looking at here? Joe Mixon's at top.
If you look at it from that standpoint, like, he's replacing a guy who we mentioned, Joe Mixon, very boring running back. Like, you don't go and draft Joe Mixon. You're like, yeah, I got Joe Mixon, baby.
But guess what?
He
Joe
gives
Mixon's
you
a
fantasy
top 12
numbers.
back. Yeah.
Yep. And Zach Moss slides in that role. Maybe Chase Brown eats into it. I don't know. But Zach Moss, incredibly effective out of shotgun. Way more effective out of shotgun than Joe Mixon was.
Yeah.
So the pathway is there. It's just,
it's risky.
You're looking at a guy who's in his 5th year and hasn't had a breakout season. And
but has he had the opportunity though?
Yeah, but like he could be this year's Alexander Madison.
100%. I'm not denying that. Him and Zamir White are the two guys that can really just end up destroying your team if they bomb.
We'll bring Zamir White in this because he's our next back. We have Zamir White at 20. I have him at RB20. You have him at 23. Last season really wasn't effective. RB56, 5.3 points per game. Like we said with Josh Jacobs, he wasn't seeing the field. 104 carries, 451 yards, touchdown, 15 catches on 19 targets, 98 yards. He's currently going as RB26 ahead of Zach Moss, late 7th round.
That's crazy to me. I'm just going to say that's crazy to me.
So
I see what Zach Moss did with Indy, and he looked so productive, dude.
Okay. In the 4 games Josh Jacobs didn't play.
Oh, Zamir White was great. Zamir White was
17 for 69 and 1, 22 for 145, 20 for 71, 25 for 112. Incredibly effective. Antonio Pierce wants to run the ball. But both these guys have so much risk baked into their upside, because Zach Moss could be what we saw in the past, Zach Moss, and be terrible. Or Chase Brown could take that leap and overjump him. Zamir White could just be bad, and then Vegas just has no running game because Alexander Madison's the backup, and we know from last season that guy's not effective.
I watched, it was like his 9 or 10 goal line carries last year, all of them, and he had -5 yards on 10 carries and on like the goal line carry. It was insane. I'm like, how is this guy that bad? Yeah, like, how are you that bad at football?
Alexander Madison, great backup running back, terrible starter.
I agree. I actually do like him a decent amount behind Zamir White, because there's a chance Zamir White doesn't pan out, and they're gonna just give both guys carries. But guys like this that like they were productive in a short amount of time, and then some team gives them the opportunity, they actually usually don't work out that well. So I am very worried about Zach Moss and Zamir White, but I've seen what they both did last year, so I'm kind of in on both. I'm more in on Zach Moss because he's going later, and I think he's going to get the Joe Mixon role. And I think he's as talented as Joe Mixon is, so I don't see why he can't put up very similar numbers to Joe Mixon.
Yeah, so right now they're not like Alexander Madison was like pushed into like the 5th round last year. These guys are going later where I'm comfortable.
Exactly.
Just if they don't hit, okay, I missed on RB1 potentially. I think Zamir White provides more RB1 upside than Zach Moss, which is why I have him a little bit higher. I do think Chase Brown's going to be a little more involved than Alexander Madison is with Zamir White.
So we have them flipped, because I think Alexander Madison's going to be more involved than Chase Brown.
Yeah. But where they're currently going, RB26 for White, RB30 for Zach Moss, that I'm not worried about missing out on if I get them and they fail. I'm fine with that.
Exactly. At their ADP, it's not going to really matter too much, because they're coming in at flex guys on your team. They're not going to be an RB2 on your team. They're going to be flex starters. for the most part, because you're getting them in the 8th or 9th round. So there's a good chance that you have 2 running backs before that. So I'm willing to take the risk on both guys for sure.
Yeah, I'm fine with them. Then, and if you miss, it's a later pick, and if you hit, you got a guy who could potentially win your league.
Yes, sir.
Next up, 19 on our list is Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots. I have him at RB18. You have him at RB17. Last season, Stevenson finished as the RB35 at 12.1 points per game. He did miss some time. He played 12 games, had 156 carries for 619 yards, 4 touchdowns, 31 receptions on 51 targets, 238 yards. Currently going as the RB22, so we're a little bit higher than consensus. Late 6th round pick. He got paid. And I think that's what kind of boosted him, because I was worried that Antonio Gibson was going to kind of eat into his pass catching role. And I still think he will, but I think Ramondre becomes a really safe option at this point. Like, he's the guy in New England. They paid him a ton of money, like $16 million a year.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bad team, so you're going to see dump off passes, but I think they're going to be a little better with Brissett. So, like, I think he'll get more rushing attempts early on in the season. Once Drake May takes over, he's going to kind of phase out in terms of like productive carries. But
yeah, I'd seen it the same way. I was a little excited for Gibson when he went to New England. I'm like, okay, I think he's going to be a good PPR option. And then New England dropped that deal for Ramondre. So I'm like, okay, they're really in on Ramondre more so than Gibson. So I bumped Ramondre a little bit. I have him on my RB17. I think if he stays healthy, he could produce like 20, 22. He played 17 games and he finished his PPR back 7. So he finished as a top 10 back, not even an RB1, is almost top 5. So I think if he could do that, he's going to be close to that. I don't have him as a top 12 back. I have him at 17, but I do think he has got good value. So I have him a little bit higher than his ADP.
Currently going at RB22 is well past his floor in my eyes. I think he's a top 17 guy.
I agree. I put him right at
18, but
I put him right at his floor, so I think he's going to end up finishing 14 to 17-ish, around that range, and he's going as RB22. So
yep, really safe pick in that range. Next up, these guys were tied based off averages, is our RB18, and that's Raheem Mostert. I have him at 17. You have him at RB18. It's actually RB5 in points in PPR.
In PPR, yes, half point PPR.
17.8 points per game. Finished as the RB5, 15 games, 209 carries, 1,012 yards, 18 touchdowns, 25 catches on 32 targets for 175 yards, another 3 touchdowns. Currently going as the RB25, late 7th round pick. The pendulum has swung so hard. Like, I get you're projecting the upside for Devon Achane, and we're going to talk about him later. He's coming up. But, like, I think it's swung too far that you think, like, Achane could be the guy, yes. But, like, Mostert isn't going to be phased out of this offense at all.
No, Mostert's still probably the starting running back.
Yeah, listen to Mike McDaniel. He's talking about, like, Raheem Mostert is the guy in the locker room. He is the top dog at back. Like, Achane is the change. And Achane's still going to get his 15 touches and be effective. But, like, the consensus right now is swinging it. Like, we're counting Raheem Mostert out of this offense. And that's not going to happen.
I don't know why it's happening, because even in 2022, he played 16 games. He was RB25. So he was almost an RB2. And then last year, he played 15 games and he finished his RB5, RB2 and half point PPR. So I think it's going to be in between that. I think it's going to be in between 5 and 25, cut it in the middle at 15. Call it as what it is. I think that's where he's going to finish. And he's going his RB like back end. It doesn't make sense.
RB25, late 7. He's not going to get 21 touchdowns this year. That's a stat that's not going to stick. But he's still going to get the touchdowns. Again, it's another situation of you trust the veteran back at the goal line over the young guy. Like, Achane's touchdowns this year are going to likely be big plays.
Yeah.
But if they get down towards the goal line in a running situation, the ball's going to Raheem Mostert.
Yeah. Once you enter like the 10-yard line, they're not running with Achane. They're going to be running with Mostert. Could Achane get a dink down pass touchdown in the red zone? Of course, but Mostert's getting the bulk carries around the goal line. That's 6 free points. Mostert's gonna probably finish close to double-digit touchdowns because he's gonna be because their offense is high-powered. They know what they're doing down there in Miami. So that's 60 points. He's gonna have close to 1,000 yards. I love Mostert at his ADP. I'm always scooping him up in mocks. Hey man, let him fall to me. I don't care.
Yeah.
I would.
So when the season ended, I was telling people like I'm probably going to be out on Mostert next year. He's older, and like I figured he was going to be bumped ADP wise, but he isn't. He has been dropped, and now I'm finding myself way in on him because like Achan's got this big swing, and I'm still in on Achan too. But Mostert's downfall in ADP is insane. Like I don't get it. Like I know fantasy, it's a lot projecting the next guy, and you're trying to do that with Achan, but like Raheem Mostert is not going to be affected too much by Achan getting more work. I still think you're getting a guy close to 10 touchdowns, close to 1,000 yards.
Yep.
If anything, he might lose some backfield stuff in terms of receptions and targets.
Check downs, yeah.
But I still think RB25 is disrespect to a guy who finished as the RB5 last year. And and at that point, he's a super safe pick. And if he doesn't hit, because whatever, if he's age or injury, which are things you have to worry about with Raheem Mostert, whatever, you're taking a shot on a guy in a high-powered offense at his way below his.
He's played 16 or 15 games 3 times, and he's finished 25, 25, and 5. So 25 is his 4. So you're literally drafting a guy at his 4 if he stays healthy. Yep. And then you add the Miami offense, you add what it could be. You got to snag him. It's such a good pick. It's such a good value. I'm preaching Mostert, but yeah, like you said, the end of last year, I thought there would only be like a round or 2 difference between him and Achan, where Achan would go in like the 2nd for the 3rd, and Mostert was going in like the 4th or the 5th. And I was out. And then like best ball started happening, and we started doing mocks. I'm like, why is Mostert going in like the 8th, the 9th round? I'm like, what is going on? It doesn't make sense to me.
And I think in a lot of home leagues, Mostert might get drafted well above his floor because people are going to be like, oh, this guy last year was really good. I had him or I played against him.
If people had Mostert last year, they're going to snag him.
Yeah. So it's one of those rare instances where home league drafters might be smarter than expert drafters that are just like, well, I'm projecting Achan to be the guy. Mostert's old. I'm letting him fall. I'm not taking that risk. In the 7th round, you take that risk.
Yeah, we'll get Devon Achan.
Yeah. Next up, running back 17 for us. I have him at 15. You have him at 20. That's David Montgomery of the Detroit Lions. Last season, he finished as RB17. He's currently being drafted as RB20 mid-6 rounds. 14 games last year, 219 carries, 1,015 yards, 13 touchdowns, 16 catches on 24 targets, 117 yards, no touchdowns. We know Detroit. Like, we can backtrack this history. Since Dan Campbell's there, they have a guy who scores a ton of touchdowns at the running back position. Jamal Williams had 17 touchdowns, and they let him go. And then David Montgomery comes in, he gets 13 touchdowns. So, like, you can almost project David Montgomery to get double-digit touchdowns this year. And that's why I think it's going to boost his ADP. Because, like, if I have him playing all 17 games, numbers are going to be a little higher. That's why I'm a little bit higher on him than you are. Jahmyr Gibbs is there, too. He's the elephant in the room. Like, they drafted this guy in the top 15. He's eventually got to take over, but I think Gibbs is going to be more as a receiver than a full, like, taking carries away from David Montgomery. I think we're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs line up in the slot a lot. Like, I think he's going to be a more effective receiver than Jameson Williams will be in this offense.
Yeah, I like Williams a lot, too, this year. I like Gibbs. I like Williams. I even like Montgomery. I see Montgomery at 10 total touchdowns, 1,000 yards. He's going to be a good value guy. I'm really in on Gibbs, though. But I do like Montgomery. He's a Detroit running back is what you're going to want. He's a very safe pick. He's a good touchdown guy. You know what you're getting. There's not much to really talk too much about David Montgomery. He's not really a big PPR guy, but he's going to get you points. He's not going to be disappointing. And if he plays all 17, he's going to be great.
I called Joe Mixon boring. The same here applies for David Montgomery. He's a really boring guy. He's not going to be a guy you draft. You're like, yeah, God, David Montgomery, baby. But he's going to be a guy who can just lock in your lineup, get 15 points, and he has upside to get 20 because he scores a ton of touchdowns in a week.
One day he could walk away with 2 touchdowns. That's 1,200 yards. That's 22 points.
Yep. So David Montgomery, again, real safe RB2, really good flex play. You're not going to be excited about drafting because you're going to be like, oh, it's David Montgomery. Like, he's boring. He's even got a boring name. He's probably the most boring piece of this high-powered offense.
Big body, though, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, my boy can lift.
But he's effective. And that brings to Joe Mixon, who is our running back 16.
Yeah. Here comes another boring person.
I have him at 19. You have him at 15. Last season, Mixon finished as the RB6 at 15.7 points per game. He played all 17 games, 257 carries, 1,034 yards, 9 touchdowns, 52 catches on 64 targets, 376 yards, and another 3 touchdowns. currently going as RB15, late 4th round. So you have him with consensus 15. I have him below. And I think it's mostly PPR format. I don't think Joe Mixon is getting 60 targets in this offense. I don't. And I don't think he's getting 250 plus carries. I just think Houston is. Let me check. I have him at 237 and 42 targets. So I have a 20 target swing and 20 carries from last season.
I just think 240 carries. And then I have 53 targets.
I think Houston has just too much to go around where Joe Mixon's going to be effective.
See, I get it, but I'm not going to not. Running back 10, 13, 49, 4, 10, and 6. 49 only played 6 games. He's never finished under running back 13 besides the years he's missed and his rookie year. I'm not counting his rookie year. So as outlier years, the game he played 6 games. So let's throw that out. So 13's his 4. I have him under his 4. That's how I look at it. I don't think he's going to be putting up Cincinnati where he's going to be 6, 4, 10, none of that. I think he's going to be 15. I think he's going to be a little bit worse than he's been in Cincinnati, but he's still going to be the running back there. Damian Priest is a bum. I don't care what reports say that they want to use him more. Yeah, I get they want to use him more, but they're not going to use him because he sucks. It's the Tank Bigsby effect. Jacksonville comes out and say they want to use Tank Bigsby, but they can't because he sucks.
Actually produced on the field. He's had 1,000 yards.
I agree. Compare him to Tank Bigsby was a disrespect. Tank Bigsby is arguably one of the worst running backs in football. I'm glad that happened because I hated him last year.
They've even said I'm gonna jump in here on the Tank Bigsby. They brought it again. They brought up we don't want to use Travis Etienne that much, and Tank Bigsby then at OTAs has already done terrible, and they're already backtracking now. They have no choice but to use Travis Etienne.
Exactly.
Sidebar, but Joe Mixon, it comes in I just don't see him being I still have him as an RB2. I have him at 19. It's more I don't want him where he's being drafted. I like the other guys a little bit more who I can get in that spot than picking boring old Joe Mixon in the 4th round.
It's almost like what you need in the 4th. If you need a guy that's just you can lock in your lineup and not worry about it, draft Joe Mixon. It is what it is. But if you need a guy that's going to be making plays, getting you big weeks, it's not going to be Joe Mixon. He's going to be right at his 4 every game.
6 touchdowns in that one game.
Hell yeah. Joe Mixon's best ability is availability. He's never hurt. He's always on the field.
Time, yeah.
And that's why he's always a top 10 back. It's because he plays every game where Montgomery doesn't, James Conner does. These guys miss games here and there. Joe Mixon doesn't. He misses one game here and there. So he's safe. And that's sometimes you just need.
You need boring guys.
Yeah. You need a mix. You need a little bit of a mix.
It's more if he was going one whole round later, late 5th instead of late 4th, I'd probably be way more in on Joe Mixon.
Understandable.
I just find Devontae Smith sometimes hanging around there in the late 4th. I'd much rather take him than Joe Mixon. I can't bring myself to be excited about taking a guy who I also could see Houston just becoming this air raid offense and not really running as much as they did because they got so many mouths to feed.
But then I think he turns into where he's getting their 60 targets. Then if they turn into an air raid offense, he's going to have 60-some targets.
I don't think so though, because I think you got to get Dalton Schultz those targets. You got to get Steph Diggs those targets. You got to get Nico Collins those targets. You got to get Tank Dell those targets.
Fuck Steph Diggs.
Those are going to be the guys that CJ Stroud's going to be looking for in the middle of the field. He's not going to be looking to dump off because he's a smart enough quarterback. Can we
really appreciate what Houston is doing? They literally brought in 4 Pro Bowlers, 2 on defense, 2 on offense. With a quarterback on a rookie deal, they know what they're doing. Get fucking Houston's dogs, dude. They know what they're doing, dude.
They do. Houston has had a great offseason. Yeah, and Joe Mixon's there, so he'll be fine.
I counted Joe Mixon as one of the Pro Bowlers they brought in.
Yes, he'll be fine, but I just think there's a lack of a ceiling for Joe Mixon.
Holy shit!
What?
Jacoby Jones passed away.
Whoa! Former Ravens receiver.
Yeah, 40.
Jeez, man. 2 podcasts in a row, we've had to talk about people dying.
R.I.P. to Jacoby Jones, dude.
Yeah.
He had that crazy playoff run in Baltimore, dude. Was unbelievable, dude.
Incredible.
Go out if you haven't seen any of those highlights from Jacoby Jones in that playoff run. He had crazy 80-yard catches, kick returns. R.I.P. King.
That dude was so effective in Baltimore. He he was a big part of that Super Bowl run. He might have been the
For
most
sure.
important thing, and not Joe Flacco. No disrespect to the
But
god
him and
that is
Flacco,
Joe
they were
Flacco.
they were unreal together,
Yeah.
dude. It was damn,
It's
dude.
insane.
That's sad.
Rough.
Damn.
All right, moving on. 15, Kenneth Walker III, Seattle Seahawks running back. Here's a funny one. He finishes 15th in our consensus ranking. You have him at 16. I have him at 16.
That's
The
funny as
averages
shit.
have pulled him into a spot where he's higher than we both have him.
Higher than we have him.
Yep. Hey guys, doing a little edit here as we had some audio issues when we were talking about Ken Waller. So I'm just going to give you a rundown of what Nick and I talked about, and then we'll go on to the next person. Essentially, we agreed that Ken Waller's got a pretty good floor, and Nick sees him as a Joe Mixon with more upside. And I agree. I think Walker has the upside to potentially break into the RB1 category, but I also think he's got a really safe floor. Like I said, I do think what Seattle did this offseason, revamping their offense, coaching changes, all that stuff. I love the upside that they're going with there. So, enjoy that little edit with a little blurb about Ken Walker III. And now, back to the regularly scheduled podcast. Adios. Last season finished as RB8, averaging 14.5 points per game, played all 17 games, 280 carries, 1,167 yards, 12 touchdowns, 28 catches on 36 targets, 214 yards. Currently being drafted as the RB11, so we're actually a little lower than consensus. Early third round. But I still love Derrick Henry, dude.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I don't think you're going to see the days of Derrick Henry getting 280 carries. But imagine Derrick Henry with fresh legs.
See, I agree he's not going to get that carries, but then I look at the backs behind him. It's not out of the possibility. Like, Justice Hill sucks. They brought in what's his face?
Rasheen Ali.
Yeah, Rasheen Ali, who I really like.
And Keaton Mitchell's still there.
But he's hurt. He's going to miss half the season probably. So Derrick Henry's kind of chugging along by himself the first 8-9 games.
Well, Lamar's going to take carries.
I agree.
There's the running back.
I don't think it's going to be Justice Hill or Rashid Ali. So he's kind of the only back. So he's going to be the bulk horse back. He's going to be getting the goal line for the most part. Lamar's still there. But yeah, I do like Derrick Henry. We run PPR, so that hits him a little bit, but it doesn't hit him drastically. Like, his biggest difference is 2021, where he finished PPR back 21 and half PPR 16. So that's 5 spots between, but he usually finishes pretty close to the spot. So it's the whole new offense.
He's older too, and usually with running backs you have to worry about that age clip. But like, Derrick Henry's such an outlier that I think, like, don't worry about the age thing with him. If it does happen, okay, it's bound to happen. But like, Derrick Henry's a guy. He still has the potential to finish as a top 5 running back in fantasy football.
100%. Again, he has the Joe Mixon ability, is availability. But it's not his best ability. It's just one of his many abilities.
Yeah.
He's missed one season and it's half a season. Yeah.
He is a machine. And imagine playing defense and staring across, and you got Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the backfield. You got a guy who could break your ankles in Lamar Jackson and just make you look stupid. Then you got a guy like Derrick Henry who's just going to murder you.
Yeah, dude. In front of them is a great offensive line. And then they add Mark Andrews, who's a great target for Lamar. They have Zay Flowers, can't forget about him. Rashad Bateman's getting a ton of praise from camp, which I love. I hope to God he shines
every year, though. Every year, it's Rashad Bateman season, baby.
It's different. I'm feeling it a little different this year, baby. I am very in on Rashad Bateman though every year. But hey, man, I love Baltimore's offense. Don't forget Isaiah Likely too. Their backup tight end. They could start pretty much everywhere.
We did do a mock draft the other day just by ourselves. And I took Lamar, and I ended up taking Rashad Bateman with my last pick. I was just, fuck it, we ball. Yeah, but Derrick Henry, I think he's not a guy you got to worry about. Don't worry about the age thing with him. I think he's the big outlier there. Like, he has outlier seasons every year. Like, running backs at this age don't do this, except Derrick Henry. Running backs with this stature don't do this, except Derrick Henry. He's the outlier. Don't be afraid to take him at his ADP. He's well worth a second-round pick. He's going early third.
Yeah, I agree. He's only 30, and I get that's the age.
He's got a lot of carries, though.
He doesn't have that injury history, though. He's been hurt once. He's missed half a season.
Yep. Let's go to a guy who's kind of the opposite of Derrick Henry. We briefly talked about him earlier, and that is our 13th ranked running back, Devon Achane of the Miami Dolphins. I have him 14, you have him 13. Last season, he finished as the RB24, 17.3 points per game. In
Insane.
11 games, Devon Achane had 103 carries for 800 yards, 8 touchdowns, 27 catches on 37 targets, 197 yards, 3 touchdowns. Currently going as the RB9.
That's terrifying.
Late second. Let me throw something. Devon Achane could be Jamal Charles.
Yes, he could.
He could be a guy who he just, his stuff is just big plays. Jamal Charles consistently did it.
Can I kind of one up you? He might be Chris Johnson.
Yeah.
Chris Johnson was RB1, I think twice. He had 2,000 yards. These guys do exist where they're 5'9", 185 pounds, and they are amazing.
Yep. Again, he could be that outlier. Running backs of this stature don't do this, except Devon Achane. And he's the backup. Raheem Mostert is still the guy. We brought that up in his part. So, I don't think you have to worry about Devon Achane getting too much of a workload.
I agree.
Where he then becomes injury prone. That's the thing. Can his body hold up? He got hurt twice.
Exactly. That's
year.
The huge thing.
But they've brought in insurance. So say Raheem Mostert does get hurt, they brought in Jalen Wright in the draft. Jeff Wilson's still there. If he makes the team, who knows? But Jeff Wilson's cheeks, I'm not worried about that. Yeah. But Jeff Wilson is a guy who could handle the Mostert role in a really ineffective way if Mostert goes down. So Miami put in place situations where if Mostert does get hurt, they don't have to fully rely on Devon Achane. Jalen Wright kind of plays both roles. If Achane does get hurt, he can slide into the Devon Achane role and piggyback off Raheem Mostert. So Miami's set. I'm not worried about that. It's going to be Achane's body holding up, but he's the guy. You gotta at this point take it. He's gonna be overdrafted, but you die with that upside. He could. Next year we could be talking about that Devon Achane finishes RB1. He's got that kind of potential.
What were those stretch of games he went on? Let's see here. 47, 24, and then 20. That's standard. Never mind. PPR, 51, 27, 22. So he had 51 points week 3, dude. Yeah. If you give me that once or twice on the year, that's 100 points in 2 games. How is that even possible? And then down here, he had another 25 and another 24. He's going to have these weeks where he has 1.5, though. Yep. 12, 9, 4, 13. And 13's fine. But then he's going to have the weeks, too, where he's getting 27, 30.
He could single-handedly win you a week. That's how good he could be.
And players like that in fantasy are extremely valuable. Him, Jamar Chase, guys that can go up and get 50 points in a week on 3 touchdowns or 2 big plays is all it takes.
Yeah.
And guys like Devon Achane are that guy.
If you draft Achane as your RB1, let's say.
Good God.
Or
that's so scary.
The dream world, if you're drafting first and you get Christian McCaffrey and somehow Achane fits back to you, that's a perfect piggyback situation. But say you do get CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill and then Achane sitting there, you take him. Then these are the times you're going to take boring-ass Joe Mixon. You're going to take boring-ass David Montgomery to give you stability at your position because Devon Achane doesn't necessarily bring that to you.
Exactly. And those also are guys that might be able to play a whole season where Achane might not be able to. So you're going to need guys like Joe Mixon or who are just guys that don't get hurt. And if you take a chance on Mixon trying that he's not going to get hurt and he gets hurt, that's a risk I'm willing to take because let's look at the numbers. He doesn't get hurt.
History's there that he doesn't. Achane, we're lower on consensus, but I have him in the same tier of where I would in this spot. I would be willing to take him at RB9, late second, mid second. I'm willing to take that risk on the upside of Devon Achane. The more and more we get closer to the season, the more I find myself thinking man, do I really want to I kind of want Achane here.
I would take him over the 4 guys I have ranked over him next. And that's just crazy. He might finish with less points, but I think he has
more upside than these guys. Okay. And let's move on then to running back 12. So we're going to start our RB1 tier, and that's James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. We both have him at RB12 last season. He finished at RB12, 13.7 points per game. 17 games, 237 carries, 1,122 yards, 2 touchdowns. 44 catches on 54 targets, 445 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's currently going as the RB14, late fourth. That's a floor.
100%.
James Cook, like 2 touchdowns has to be an outlier. Like that, I don't see another year where James Cook is just getting 2 rushing touchdowns. Buffalo
as I agree, they brought in Ray Davis, correct?
Yes,
They
not
have
worried
Josh
about
Allen.
It.
Neither am I, but he's a goal line back.
I am worried about Josh Allen taking touchdowns for
he's
sure.
a typical goal line back. His legs don't stop moving. I don't know if they just don't trust James Cook around the goal line. He's fumbled there a couple of times, so they're just like, we're going to give it to Allen. So God forbid, I don't know why my camera keeps doing that. God forbid that it happens just once. Week 1, he fumbles once in the red zone. I don't think he gets another goal line carry at all. It's going to be Ray Davis and Josh Allen all year getting goal line carries.
Just be Josh Allen. But James Cook could be incredibly. James Cook could, if he's like a 5th round running back, those guys usually don't. I'm just saying, like this we could be talking about Leonard Fournette here in a couple weeks. They had him last season, but
I would be talking about that. It's not going to be him as the goal line back.
James Cook's also going to be really effective as a PPR running back. Buffalo has 200 plus targets that they have to replace. History shows those usually actually go to the running back more than the receivers. There's no true alpha receiver in Buffalo. Keon Coleman, reports haven't been great. Like, they love him, but they're saying, like, hey, he's got a lot to learn. He's got to do this. Like, he's slow to pick up the playbook. Curtis Samuel, he's good, but he's not going to be like a guy who's going to blow your offense away. Same with Khalil Shakir. So, like, James Cook could see an upload where he's getting 80-plus targets, and we're looking at close to 70 catches. So he could bring. It's going to be sort of like the guy we're going to talk about next, Alvin Kamara.
Where he's just about to bring that up.
A ton of targets and ton of catches, and kind of breaks fantasy football, where he doesn't score touchdowns, but he's getting all this touches. But like, if James Cook has 5 touchdowns and 1,100 yards and 60 carries, he's probably finishing in the top 7.
60 targets, yeah. Oh yeah, no, I agree. His PPR upside has the ability to really boost him in there. Just on the ability of, that's what I like to see. Just on the swing of him being the real option there. It low-key terrifies me that Josh Allen has dog water at receiver, dude. Like, I like the guys that they have, but it's kind of concerning when it comes to a fantasy football. It's really concerning that Josh Allen's going QB1 and his receivers are
Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, and Khalil Shakir, and they're going out like towards the bottom, towards the 50s.
They're going like wide receiver 40, 50s. Yeah. It's a weird world we're living in. So
yeah, I think the Buffalo offense, like when we get to Buffalo, we'll dive more into that. But I think the guys you're going to want are going to be Josh Allen. He's going to be fine because he's going to get rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. James Cook and Dalton Kincaid. I think those are the only 3 guys you're going to want on the Buffalo offense. Maybe take the upside shot on Keon Coleman late.
You want the 3, obviously, but then I honestly try to find myself trying to get one of the receivers. Just one of them. If I can get one and it happens to be the one that he uses, I'm looking at a guy that's a good flex guy. It's almost a dart toss with Samuel, Kashir, and Keon Coleman. It's all 3 of them. Which one are you going to take?
I'm in on James Cook. I think James Cook has top 5 RB upside if he gets touchdowns. Yeah, because he's going to get a ton of targets.
For sure. I think his floor is pretty close to where he was last year, which is like RB12.
Yep. Next up, Alvin Kamara. Previously mentioned him. He did finish as RB11, which is where we have him. I have him at RB11. You have him at 10. Played 13 games, 180 carries, 694 yards, 5 touchdowns, 75 catches on 86 targets, 466 yards, and a touchdown. Not really effective. You look at those numbers, those aren't great. Those are ineffective numbers, like spam numbers, but he put up numbers. He's currently going in the mid-5th as RB17. So
great value.
That's great value. Like, Kamara could have a similar year to this where he's just got really ineffective numbers, but he gets a ton of work because Kendre Miller doesn't stay healthy. Jamal Williams ain't it anymore. Taysom Hill, maybe, like the Saints offense, but new offense. Like, I think that's going to open things up for Alvin Kamara, that we kind of see him shift back to what he used to be. Like, I think we're going to get close to 1,000 yards rushing. He should play mostly every game. He does have some injury concern, but last season he really only missed because of the suspension.
Yep.
But at RB17, where he's currently going, we're both higher. I think that's incredible value. And he's a guy in home leagues who's probably going to go earlier because name value, Alvin Kamara.
Yeah. I'm going to list off numbers real quick. PPR rank 11, 16, 8, 1, 9, 4, and 3. He's never finished lower than where he's being drafted right now. Ever. ever.
Yeah.
Not once. Why is he going that low?
Yep.
Can't tell me. I don't know. I do have him I have him a running back 10. He's a PPR god, dude.
I'm at 11. Yeah.
Kamara's legit, dude. He's missed games a couple times, 13 here and there, but he's 14, 15, 16 every other year. I don't know what it is. He's fine. You got to get him. He's a guy that's good in fantasy football.
He's going to get targets. Like, they're not just going to stop throwing the ball to Alvin Kamara because they got a new offense. They lost Michael Thomas. So, sure, like Chris Olave, I think, could make that big jump, and we see his boom year. We mentioned that in the receiver episode. Rashid Shaheed,
I agree.
Another guy who could break out. But, like, Alvin Kamara is not going to stop getting work because he's new offense, older, whatever. Like, he's still a guy they're going to rely, again, veteran guy.
So proven, dude.
Yep.
Yeah. Kamara's legit. Don't doubt that he's only 28. He's not even that old. He's the same age as McCaffrey. He's been doing it every single year he's been playing. He's consistent. He's steady. Show my boy some love, baby.
And going as RB17 is insane. He's like the higher end Raheem Mostert here, where you're like Raheem Mostert's going 25. We're like, that's disrespect. You got a guy who's always an RB1.
Yeah, he's literally going lower than he's
yeah.
ever finished. It doesn't make sense.
Next up, our top 10, we have Isaiah Pacheco, the Kansas City Chiefs. I have him as my RB10. You have him as RB9 last season. Finished as RB15, 15.3 points per game, 14 games, 205 carries, 935 yards, 7 touchdowns, 44 receptions on 49 targets. Efficient. Yes, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's currently going as the RB12, so we're higher, late third. Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon's not there anymore. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still there, but I think Pacheco starts to creep into this bell cow role where he's seeing the carries and the targets.
Hell yeah. I love Pacheco in this opportunity this year. I love the offense. I love what they're going to be doing with him. I love that Jerick McKinnon's not there. If Jet does happen to sign with Kansas City, I will drop him a couple spots. Just a couple, but he would still want him. But I think I'm not worried about Clyde at all. I don't think they want Clyde on the field. So Pacheco's going to be the dude. They brought in no competition.
Safe floor guy.
Yeah, and you're getting the guy in Kansas City's offense, dude. Like, and look what he does. Every time that guy gets the ball, he is set on some type of mission. I don't know what it is. I've never seen someone run with such purpose.
So much anger.
I love it. He's a dog, baby.
I've actually heard people use that as a flaw for Pacheco. Like, I don't like the way he runs. It worries me. Nah, dude, I love that.
But you know what? Someone that runs like a brick wall, baby. Oh, he's a dog, dude.
Yeah. And Kansas City,
Fuck Derrick Henry. This guy's got 4 inches less and 40 pounds less, and he runs like Derrick Henry, dude. What are we talking about?
Kansas City, there's talks they want to open up the offense again and be pass heavy. And I don't think that hurts Pacheco really, because I think he's going to get targets. Pat Mahomes is going to find this dude. Like, I think he's going to get his first 1,000-yard season. I think he could eclipse double-digit touchdowns. Like, I think there's a ton of upside there with Isaiah Pacheco.
I couldn't agree more. He came in as a rookie, like a 7th-round pick, and you heard the camp reports, like, yo, this guy's, he's ripping up the camp. He's a 7th-round pick. They love him. And it showed some of his rookie year. Last year it showed, dude, RB 16, 15. It's only up, dude. He's going to keep going up. Just don't just bet on Pacheco, for sure. These next couple guys I'm really in for.
Next up, this man finished as RB4 in PPR last season with 15.8 points per game. Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You have him as RB11. I have him as RB7.
Hell yeah,
17 games last season, 272 carries for 990 yards, 6 touchdowns, 64 receptions on 70 targets, 549 yards, 3 more touchdowns. Currently going as the RB13, mid-4th round. I love this floor as RB13. You got a guy who was top 5 last year. Like, same offense, same players. It does worry me that he only averaged 3.6 yards per carry. Those are Josh Jacobs' range, but Tampa Bay brought in a piece to trying to help the line and Graham Barton in the first round. Like, if he can get that 3.6 up to 4, you're looking at a guy who's going to get 1,000 yards. He's going to get close to 10 total touchdowns. He's going to get close to 70 targets again. Again, PPR guy, he's going to bring in passes. Baker loves dumping off to running backs. He's going to find Rachaad White. If he can be a little bit more effective in the run game, you got an easy RB1.
You got an RB top 5. Baker loves check down. Rachaad White was like a poor man Christian McCaffrey last year, and I had them both in our home league. And he's a huge part. Like, if you look at my team last year, there's a reason it's clear I won. Like, I got Rashad White very late. I got Mike Evans very late. Like these guys, and like Rashad White, it's just proven now. He's going in the 4th round, 3rd round ish. He's not going to take a step back. Like he might because he finished RB4, but if he takes a step back, it's not going to be like drastic. He's not going to finish RB20. He's going to finish RB11.
Again, you're drafting him at his floor, maybe a little bit below at RB13.
I agree. Yeah, like he's a safe bet, dude. That Tampa offense, it's gonna be ran well. They have the good pieces. Baker gets slept on. That line's gonna be slept on. Just go draft Rashad White and Mike Evans, dude. They're
Like,
safe bets.
I get being afraid of drafting Rashad White because if you're just looking at solely his running numbers, 3.6 yards per carry, not great, but he's making up for it in the pass game. Yeah, he's gonna see the ball.
Guy.
Again, I don't think Bucky Irving's going to eat into his work. I don't think Sean Tucker's eating into his work. I don't think Chase Edmonds is eating into his work. He's the guy.
Yeah, I agree. You see that they only brought in Bucky pretty much, and I like Bucky Irving, but he's not going to make me not draft Rashad White. Like, what are we talking about here?
He is Rashad White.
Essentially, yeah. Yeah, I see that. Yeah. So I like Rashad White a lot. He helped a lot last year.
Yeah. RB8, Jonathan Taylor, the Indianapolis Colts. You have him as your RB6. He's my RB9. Last season finished as RB33, 15.6 points per game. Only played 10 games, 169 carries for 741 yards, 7 touchdowns, 19 receptions on 23 targets, 153 yards, and another touchdown. He's currently going as the RB5, early 2nd round. So Jonathan Taylor, we've never seen him play with Anthony Richardson. So that's what I'm excited for. But I'm also worried about that because running quarterbacks take touchdown work away from their running backs. So that's where our difference is. Me having him at 9, you have him at 6. I just don't think Jonathan Taylor has double-digit touchdown upside, but he's going to be effective. Again, this is sort of like Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. You're a defense, and you're looking at Anthony Richardson, who's a freak, and Jonathan Taylor, who's just a machine as a running back. Mm-hmm. That's a scary thought. I think Indianapolis, low-key, could win that division. Beat out Houston.
It's going to be one of them 3. That's not Tennessee for sure. RB6 his rookie year, RB1 his 2nd year, and then 33 and 33 the last 2 years. He was banged up and then contract issues at some point as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I love Jonathan Taylor. I've always loved Jonathan Taylor back in Wisconsin. He's a very special running back, and I think that is coming back this year. I would have no gripes if he finishes RB1. Could see it happen. The pathway's there. The whole offense in Indy, though, it's scary. He could fall. He can fall back a couple spots, or he can go up. He's gonna be in that range. He's got a pretty big window. But Jonathan Taylor, though, dude, he's special, dude. He's always been special. And when he's on the field for a full season, he's going to be a top 5 running back.
Yeah, I have no gripes with Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he's going a little bit higher than I take him, but again, he falls into the same tier. I have no gripes with him going as RB5. He's worth it. He's got a proven track record. Like the 233 finishes are injuries, contract stuff. Yeah. Like when he's played a full year, he's been a top 5 running back.
Yeah, he's a freak.
Was
he a 1st round pick? Or did he fall?
No, he went 2nd round.
That's crazy. The Chiefs
took Clyde over him.
That's great. I remember that for sure.
RB7, Travis Etienne Jr., the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have him at RB8. You have him at RB7. Last season in PPR, he finished as the RB3, 16.6 points per game, 17 games, 267 carries, 1,008 yards, 11 touchdowns, 58 receptions on 73 targets, 476 yards, 1 touchdown. Currently going as the RB8, late 2nd round. We brought it up with Tank Bigsby. Jackson was like, we want to lighten the workload of Travis Etienne, but then Tank Bigsby just is trash. Yeah. So again, he's going to be a guy who's getting the full workload, and it did take a toll on him later in the year. You kind of seen him slowing down, but Etienne still, I'm buying in on, especially where you're getting him.
Yep. If he's playing, I'm picking him. It's that simple. There's literally no running back behind him on the depth chart. I think it's blank spot, and then Tank Bigsby, they just have a blank spot next to him because Tank Bigsby's that bad. I think Jacksonville's taking that leap that they were supposed to take last year, this year.
Maybe Doug Peterson teams never get better. That's the thing.
That is true. But I love Trevor Lawrence. I love Travis Etienne. They have a really good receiving crew, and that's coming from me, and I'm not really huge on Brian Thomas Jr., but I love the addition of Gabe Davis. Gabe
Davis, most touchdowns in the league since 2020.
Since 2020, Gabe Davis.
Including the playoffs.
top dog, because he had 17 touchdowns versus Kansas City that one game or whoever it was versus.
Yeah. It was
He had his Jerry Rice moment.
yeah.
Dave Evan Ingram. I love Jacksonville's offense. I'm trying to grab some type of piece from it. ETN, Evan Ingram in the later rounds. One of the receivers. I like Christian Kirk as well. Excuse me.
Christian Kirk. He's that bore. He's Joe Mixon of a wide receiver.
He is. He's a very safe pick. But I think ETN's I don't think he's going to finish 3. I think he's going to finish a little bit less than that. But if he finishes 3 again, it wouldn't surprise me because of what's not behind him. It's him. It's him. And he's had this rapport with Trevor Lawrence since college. They both went to college together. So like Trevor Lawrence just trusts him. And again, it's who do you trust? That's who's getting the ball.
Exactly.
And it's not Tank Bigsby and his fumbling problems.
Yeah. ETN at RB8 is insane value. I find myself every time in the second round, I'm looking Travis Etienne's way because like I'm getting a potential top 5 running back in the mid-second round. I'm cool with that. I'm in on ETN. I've brought up before that like I think Trevor Lawrence could pass for 5,000 yards this year if they open up the offense. I don't think that's going to hurt ETN at all. He had 73 targets last year. I think that continues if they open up the offense. He's an elite check down
guy. Yeah, he's an elite check down guy. I don't know, dude. I like it.
Also, another guy, if the ball's in his hands, he can score. He's got game-changing potential.
For sure, dude.
Next up, our RB6. You have him as your RB8. I have him as my RB5, and that's Kyren Williams of the Los Angeles Rams. Last season finished as RB7. Only played 12 games, but he averaged 21.3 points per game, which was second among running backs. 228 carries for 1,144 yards, 12 touchdowns, 32 receptions on 48 targets, 206 yards, and another 3 touchdowns. Currently going as the RB7 mid-second round. Now, you brought up handcuffing way earlier. Throwback to James Conner with Trey Benson. Kyren Williams is another guy. If I'm drafting Kyren Williams, I'm looking at getting Blake Corum at the end of the draft because the Rams are known to just use one running back. And if Kyren Williams does go down, you're getting Blake Corum, who could have RB1 weeks.
As much as I love Kyren Williams, that's probably one of his big problems is his health. That's why he kind of fell in the draft. He wasn't
2
really...
years in the league, both injured as well. Got injured first play of his rookie season, and then last year missed 5.
So that's kind of why he slipped in the draft, and the Rams snagged him. He's a great running back. He's going to be elite if he's on the field. I'm worried about his health. I'm worried about Blake Corum coming in. I think they're going to run a little bit more 2 backs to keep Kyren healthy. I think we're going to kind of see like a switch in the run game where they're using both to keep him fresh because they know how valuable Kyren Williams is.
So you think Sean McVay's looking at his old buddy Matt LaFleur and be like, I should do that? Because Matt LaFleur came from the Sean McVay system, who Sean McVay is known to utilize just one running back. And Matt LaFleur refuses to use one running back.
Didn't Miami's coach as well?
Mike McDaniel? Yes.
Yeah. So both those guys, 2-back systems.
Not Kevin O'Connell, though.
Well, yeah, exactly. He has these guys he can call up and be like, let's talk some game, 2-back system. You got to keep Kyren fresh. Blake Corum was an early day 2 pick because of that. And I love Kyren Williams. I'm not going to let it not make me take him. I love him in the Rams offense. The 2 elite receivers, him, Stafford. Stafford's a great pocket quarterback. He's not ideally for fantasy, but
last season, if you ended up drafting Kyren Williams at the end of your draft, because last year it was Cam Akers, and he got the boost, and Kyren Williams kind of went up. But if you took the shot on Kyren at the end of your draft, or you got him on waivers, chances are you made a run in your league. Because Kyren was that much of a dog in fantasy. 21.3 points per game, insane. I think that's going to drop a little bit, but I'm looking, he's probably going to get 18 points per game. That's still going to put him in the RB1 top 5 range.
Yeah. In our home league, the team I played in the championship had Kyren Williams, and I had CeeDee Lamb on Thursday get 40 points. I was set. I won. Kyren Williams at 4 o'clock got 40 points. And I'm like, oh my God, this game is so close now because Kyren Williams just did what CeeDee Lamb did. But he can go out there. He can win you games. He's a dog, baby.
I got Kyren Williams points here. 17.4 week 1, 28, 8.5, 27.7, 7.7, 21.8. And then injured, bye week, injured. 38.4, 20.2, 14.3, 24.5, 16.4, 30.1 in the championship week. When he played, incredibly effective, 2 games under 10. you're getting a guy consistent, like he won you weeks, and I think that does continue. And I think if they even keep him fresh, like if Blake Corum does cut in a little bit, I think that just makes Kyron better.
I agree. It keeps his legs fresh longer in the season. It's more availability for him to spread it out through the season where you're not getting games where 0, 0, 0, 0, bye week 0. You're going to be getting 12, 14, 18, 22, 12, and it's going to add up to way more points.
Yeah. Top 5. First back, Saquon Barkley of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's your RB4, my RB6, formerly of the New York Giants. Last season, he finished as RB13, 15.9 points per game, 14 games, 247 carries, 962 yards, 6 touchdowns, 41 catches on 60 targets, 280 yards, 4 touchdowns. Currently going as RB6, early second round. Saquon's your dude. I was going to say, like, I'm out on him, but I only have him 2 spots below you. I don't really necessarily like him at his ADP, but and it's more of like the Eagles don't pass to their running back and Jalen Hurts gets goal line stuff. But I think with the new offense, I think Barkley's going to get the goal line work. I don't think he's getting 60 targets, but I think he's getting 1,000 yards and like could get 12 rushing touchdowns in this offense.
Like people are bringing up like, oh, Hurts is going to get the carries at the goal line. Kelsey's not there anymore. You kind of have to put that into some type of factor. Don't get me wrong, the tush push is still going to happen. Hurts is still going to put up close to double-digit touchdowns. That's what he does every single year. But I'm sorry, Barkley is not DeAndre Swift or Miles Sanders. Those guys are dog water compared to Barkley. Barkley is a true elite talent. And
you're not paying this guy all this money to push Jalen Hurts into the end zone.
It truly is going to kill me when he returns to MetLife and runs for 255 and 3 touchdowns and destroys us. It breaks my heart. He finished his RB1, his rookie season RB10. He got banged up the 2 seasons after that, and then 5 and 13. His floor is 13. His ceiling is 1.
Yeah.
And in Philly, his ceiling is 1. He's gotten paid all of this money. He's in an elite offense with an elite offensive line. And as a Giants fan, I could honestly not be more happy. I will want to see this guy succeed. I would have loved if it was with us. Unfortunately, it's not, and I'm fine with that. I don't want to dish out $20 million, whatever the fuck it is, 15 to a running back.
Yeah.
I want nothing but success for Barkley. He's getting it. He's the dude this year, dude. Yeah, I'm so in on Barkley.
The Eagles aren't paying this guy to push Jalen Hurts into the end zone. The Eagles are paying this guy to be a key focal point of this offense, and Kellen Moore is going to utilize him more. Like, I don't think he's going to get all the receiving work he got in New York, but I think he's going to get a ton of running work, and I think he's going to get a ton.
If Barkley led the league in rushing yards, I would not be surprised.
Yeah. I'm not worried. The only thing I'm worried about Barkley is durability. He does get banged up.
100%. He's missed a couple seasons. He played 2 games in 2020, 13, and 19, and 21. But he has 3 seasons that he has proven. And then even the 1 season he missed games, he still finished RB10. So, like, he's the dude. I hope to God he stays healthy. I want it. And he's a hometown baby. He's from around here. He's returning to Philly. Go off, King.
He's running with a chip on his shoulder this year for sure. Next up, Jahmyr Gibbs, our RB4. I have him at 4. You have him at 5. Last season, he finishes the RB10, 16.1 points per game. He played 15 games, 182 carries for 945 yards, 10 touchdowns, 52 receptions on 71 targets, 316 yards, another touchdown. Currently going as the RB4, late first round pick. Jahmyr Gibbs, we brought him up with David Montgomery. He's one of those big upside guys. Like, you're buying into the upside. Like, I remember going into the year, they're like, oh, Jahmyr Gibbs wasn't getting like any goal line work. Somehow this dude got 10 touchdowns though.
He's like, the tale of 2 seasons. He started off so slow and everyone's like, this guy's garbage. We don't need this guy.
I can't believe they wasted a top 15 pick on this guy.
Montgomery missed a couple games and all of a sudden, oh boy, here's Jamar. It's hit. And even when Montgomery came back, people were like, oh, it's going to go back to the way it was. No, it did not.
No.
And that's what's going to continue to happen this season. Gibbs is the dude. He's the PPR guy. He's the guy, dude. I'm all in on Jahmyr Gibbs in the first. If he falls to the second some miracle way, I'm in. I find my guy scooping this guy up.
He's got RB1 upside. All 4 of these guys do. They're in the top 4. Especially number 1 is probably going to finish them. But the next guys we're talking about are guys who could easily finish the season as the first running back in fantasy points. Jahmyr Gibbs, like I brought up with David Montgomery, I think he's going to have a ton of work in the receiving game. I think he's going to get more than 70 targets. I think he's going to be the third receiving option after Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta. But Gibbs, he's got so much, like, if he does, like, gets more rushing work, breaks 1,000 yards, get another 10 touchdowns, get 60 catches, and another 3, you're looking at a dude he could be the guy who gets 20 touchdowns this year.
Oh, 100%. It might not even be Montgomery. If it's Gibbs, you're looking at an RB1 season, and it's not even going to be close because he's going to have the Kamara catches, he's going to have the Henry touchdowns, and he's going to have 1,000 yards. That's that's the perfect storm.
Next up, Bijan Robinson, our running back 3. We both have him at 3. Last season finished as RB9, 14.5 points per game. Played all 17 games, even though there was one game he was sick and he barely played. He had like 1 carry. 214 yards, 214 carries, 976 yards, 4 touchdowns, 58 receptions on 86 targets, 487 yards, 4 more touchdowns. Currently going mid to late first as the second running back. Bijan was drafted in the top 10 for a reason. You don't see that a lot with running backs. Everything's coming. He's got a good quarterback. He's got the Rams systems coming in. Like, we've seen what Rams running backs could do. Like, Bijan Robinson could be scary good this year.
There's the reports coming out that Atlanta plans to use him like McCaffrey. And if that happens, he's going top 3. He's going to finish an RB5. He's got the same kind of skill set. He catches, he runs, he's elite. He's fast. He sees vision. He doesn't have many holes.
If you've never seen the camera angle from the sky cam where he catches that ball out of the backfield with one hand and then jukes that defender into the grave, go find it, because it's one of the coolest things you're ever going to see.
It's crazy, dude. Like, Bijan is a freak talent. Go watch his stuff from Texas. It's still there. In Atlanta, it's the same. He's very durable. He took crazy hits in college. I've seen the guy literally get scorpioned in half and then continue to play. Like, he could have died that play in college, and yet he still played. He's the dude. He's freak.
The dude.
I had him at my RB2, and then I switched him and the guy that's next. I gave the other guy 1 more touchdown and it put him over the top. Hey man, Bijan's Bijan. If you can get him in redrafts, dynasty, any type of fantasy, you go get him. He's elite, dude. He's
There's not much more. Bijan, he could. If I was willing to place a bet on a guy to get 2,000 rushing yards this year, it would be Bijan.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. He's that good. His targets, 86 targets, and only had 58 catches. Those are bad targets. Those aren't going to happen with Kirk Cousins.
Exactly. His targets, they're going to go up. We're looking at like a real, like, Donovan, what's his name? Your running back.
Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin Cook was constantly like finishing RB5-ish. Bijan's a little more talented than he is, and I think it's going to be very similar. He's going to be a top 5 back this year, if not higher. There's nothing really you could really say. I'm going to quick throw out something about Kyle Pitts. New reports are coming out that Kyle Pitts is playing receiver and tight end this year. Receiver being the first one. I love it. Go get these guys on the field. These guys are freak athletes. Him, Bijan, Drake London. Go please show us why you guys drafted these guys in the top 10. Prove you guys were doing it right.
I cannot wait to see what Zach Robinson does with his offense.
I agree. Just please let him ball out.
Breece Hall of the New York Jets. We both have him as RB2. He finished last year as RB2, 17.1 points per game. Played all 17 games off the ACL injury, 223 carries, 994 yards, 5 touchdowns, 76 catches on 95 targets. 591 yards and 4 touchdowns in the receiving game. Currently going as RB3, mid to late first round. I don't see 95 targets in Breece Hall's future, but it could happen again. Like Mike Williams can't stay healthy. Garrett Wilson's going to get his 160. It could happen, but a lot of that came from the bad quarterback play for the Jets. Aaron Rodgers is there, so that might open up things more in the pass game, which makes Breece Hall's run game open up better, and he's going to get 1,000 yards. Like, Breece Hall is going to be dangerous good this year again. Like Bijan, like his ton of upside. He's going to give you receiving work. He could again have 70 catches.
His receiving work's going to go down based off of better quarterback play, but it's only going to boost his run. I watched all of his 25-yard or more rushes from last season, and they were all great, dude. He's hitting holes. He's bouncing off tackles. He's a freak speed. He can break away from Breece Hall is... I love Breece Hall, dude. There is not going to be a thing I say ill about him. Guys coming off injury usually take a time to come back. He played all 17 and killed it. Like, he was a PPR god last year.
Like, there were games where he only averaged like two yards a carry, but that's more because like Zach Wilson and Mike White. No, not Mike White last year. Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian were fucking the quarterbacks of the New York Jets last year. Like, of course you're going to stack the box and stop Brees Hall.
Exactly.
Now,
they knew they weren't passing.
You're not going to
they
do that to
stopped
Aaron
Brees Hall.
Rodgers.
You can't do it to Rodgers. He's going to pick you apart deep with Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans, touchdown machine. Or Mike Williams. Oh, good God, Mike Evans. Mike Williams. He's like a poor man, Mike Evans.
The poorest Mike Evans.
The poorest. I love Brees Hall, dude, though. I think his rushing numbers are going to go up with Rodgers at quarterback.
Yeah, you're looking at a guy who could, again, get 1,500 plus rushing yards.
Yeah, 100%. And I wouldn't bat an eye. He's a freak athlete. These guys are all great. You can't really not say, like, what else do you want me to say about Brees Hall?
You're going to be happy if you draft these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're
exactly.
Like, nice. I got him. Number 1, obviously, Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. He finished as RB1. He had over 100 more points in PPR than Brees Hall, who was the RB2. 24.5 points per game. Played 16 games. He missed the game. Last game of the year, just didn't play him. 272 carries, 1,459 yards, 14 touchdowns, 67 catches on 83 targets for another 564 and 7 touchdowns. He's going as the first pick of the draft, going as RB1. He should. Like, you shouldn't have that first pick and not take Christian McCaffrey. He's the safest player in fantasy football.
McCaffrey. Oh, just a quick run through his PPR finishes. Rookie year, 10. Second year, 2, 1, 53, 38. Those 2 years, he played 3 games, 7 games. So 10 games total in 2 seasons. 2022, running back 2. Last year, running back 1. He finishes as running back 1 or 2 every year except his rookie year if he's hurt. So what are we debating here? He's the best fantasy football running back. He's probably the best running back in football. He's the best offensive playmaker. Like, look at McCaffrey's season last year. Like, he was unstoppable, dude. He had 17 games with a touchdown in a row, considering last year to this year.
Mm-hmm.
It was something like that. It's
the touchdown numbers
dude.
are tough to kind of repeat. Like, Christian McCaffrey's only had over 10 touchdowns one other time in a season. That was in 2019 when he had 15, and he had 1,000 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns added to that.
What do you have in 2022?
2022, he had 8 touchdowns.
Okay.
And 5 receiving. But in San Francisco, he played 11 games, had 6 touchdowns. Is in San Fran.
Okay.
That's when he split with Carolina. So, like, but I'm not going to doubt, like, I think he could get 10 touchdowns again because San Francisco is just that good of an offense where this guy gets 10 rushing touchdowns, 5 receiving touchdowns. He's another guy who could get another year of 20 touchdowns.
Yeah, and like he's 28. He's not old. He's got the workload. If he could just stay healthy, that's the only thing you're really kind of concerned about. But he's done it the last 2 seasons. It seems like in this offense they know how to use him, and he's a surefire to be at least the top 2 or 3 running back.
San Fran has all the big boom offense. Like, it's a Kittle week, it's an Ayuk week, it's a Samuel week. You never have to worry about that with Christian McCaffrey. He's the safest option in a top 10 offense.
It's always a McCaffrey week plus somebody else. Like, someone happens to join him one week, but every single week it's a McCaffrey week. If
you want to chase Tyreek Hill or CeeDee Lamb at pick 1 because they have the potential to outscore Christian McCaffrey, go for it. But I wouldn't. Just take him 1-1.
I
just
have
settle
with
and be like, hell yeah, I got Christian McCaffrey, baby.
I have CD with a few more points, but McCaffrey plays running back. There are not that many good running backs in fantasy football compared to receivers. No. Get McCaffrey. Don't look back. Don't worry about it. And if he gets hurt, that's a risk I'm willing to take. And that's coming from a guy who...
McCaffrey and then draft Javon Achane.
I had McCaffrey both those seasons he got hurt, and I'm still out here drafting McCaffrey. Like, I don't care that he gets hurt those 2 seasons. If he gets hurt, that's on me. It's a risk I'm taking.
Fantasy football, just do it up. He's the best. The best at it. There you go.
The guy,
top 24 running backs. I'm not going to run through them, but there it is. There's the list. Drafted Up podcast. Thanks, guys. This one's a long one. We wanted to kind of...
It's 24 guys. Yeah. 25. We talked about Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff that we want to get through. So next week, we'll be looking at combining our quarterbacks and tight ends. We're probably not going to talk about... We'll probably do 12 receivers and 12 tight ends. Ugh, that sounds terrible. 12 tight ends.
Receivers.
Or 12 quarterbacks, sorry.
I'm not talking about 12 fucking tight ends. Get the hell out of here. There are 8 tight ends worth drafting.
We'll list 12 tight ends, talk about 5 of them.
Yeah. We'll talk about 7.
Drafted Up podcast. Thanks, guys. Long one here. Sorry about that. But
oh, wait, no, I won't be here next week. I'm done. I'm retired. I forgot. I got NCAA football.
It'll be me and AI Nick.
Yeah, it'll be fake Nick.
Yeah. Drafted Up podcast, as always, at drafted up _pod, Twitter/X, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Drafted a Podcast, rate, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you as always for listening, guys. We appreciate it. Adios.
Bye.